Hi, everyone, and welcome to our second part of this series. And today I'm super excited to introduce Antony Whitaker, who is, the ultimate educator and motivator with a worldwide reputation based on more than 30 years experience in the hairdressing industry. He's internationally acclaimed as gifted, multi-award winning stylist-turned-educator, motivator, business coach, and best-selling author. I've had the privilege to work with him with our salons as he's coached us into growth, and I just think he is such an incredible mentor and a brilliant mind in this industry that I'm so honored that he said yes, and he gets to spend the next hour with us. So welcome, Antony.
It's an absolute pleasure to have this opportunity to be with you guys. Do you want me to jump straight in and start with my sort of charts that I've got up there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Jump straight in. And right. As you're going through, if there's any questions, put them in the chat box and we'll go from there. So take it away.
Right. Okay. Rightio. So where do we start? The slides won't change. Right, let's see if that, okay, so I've lost my pointer now, but at least I will be able to change slides. So there we go. We will survive like that, though. That's more than okay. So it's great to be here, everybody. Thank you very much for signing on today and joining in. As Sean and Tina said, we want you to feel free to ask questions. I've got a little bit of a PowerPoint to go through. It's, sort of a collection of thoughts that I think are sort of current at the moment from where we've just come from, what any specific lessons are that we, have learnt, and, some ideas about maybe where we're going as we move through this. So, I would never have thought that we would see that picture, like, or certainly not in a Western country. And that is our new reality. A friend of mine in Sydney yesterday sent me a picture. He opened yesterday or Saturday. He opened on Saturday for the first time. Some salons there are starting to open. And he has, this isn't from his salon, but the picture he sent me, he's wearing a mask. The client is wearing a mask. The client is wearing gloves. And it's like, oh my God, this is the new norm. This is the reality of the world that we now live in, and it just seems so foreign. I think to start with, maybe it might even seem like a little bit of a novelty, but it's maybe not going to seem like a novelty for too long. So anyway, let's get into things. I look at that picture and I just sort of go, I would never have thought that we would see that as the norm in our industry. Perhaps in the Asian countries where they've been using face masks and stuff for a while, maybe there, yes, but certainly in the United States, in Europe, UK, Australia, whatever, it will be every bit as much the norm as anywhere else. So, I was reflecting on this before we got online today. I started working on this morning. It's 5 o'clock where I am now. And I was thinking, some of the lessons that I think that is an industry that we need to make sure we walk away with this from, because I think it's always important that we look for lessons. And I think a lot of us would have said the salon industry is underprepared for things like this, but I think that is proven to be even more so than our wildest dreams, how underprepared as an industry we are. And I think that's a lesson we need to take away from this, that so many salons out there exist, survive, run on cash flow. And the minute that cash flow stops coming in, everything grinds to a halt. There is so little fallback position. And, you will often hear people, not necessarily in the hairdressing industry, just period in business, saying how everyone should really have 3 months worth of savings put aside at a personal level, and or at a business level. That if the world stopped tomorrow, you should be able to survive for 3 months. The reality is that most salons, and most individual hairdressers, you'd be lucky if they can survive a week without there being some cash flow ticking over. And that is that's a problem for us as an industry. And I think that how enormous that problem is being rammed home more than ever because of this event. And it's very easy to sort of go, well, Antony, this is a once in a lifetime event. How can you possibly prepare for things like this? But yes, COVID-19 might be a once in a lifetime event. And it's getting so much traction because it's global. It's shut the whole world down, which is just phenomenal. But these sort of things happen on a small scale every single day of the week to salon owners. They're just not global shutdowns. So let me give you some examples. To tell you on the truth, I actually put a chart together on this, but I took the chart out because it just looked so doom and gloom. I thought, oh my God, I can't show people that. Basically, it was you see, now I'm going to have to get it out. I'm going to have to get the chart out. Okay. So I have prefaced already that I did shut the chart down. I'm now going to open the chart up so you can see it. But I've prefaced that it is a bit doom and gloom, and it is a little bit doom and gloom. So, sorry, I still didn't open it up properly. What I'm alluding to is this: is that at the moment we have this COVID-19, and everyone is going, "Oh my God, this is a once in a lifetime thing. We'll never see this again. We'll tell our grandchildren about it." And yes, we probably will, and this probably is once in a lifetime thing. But these things are not once in a lifetime. So this is Houston earlier this year. It could have been England earlier this year. It could have been, Dallas. It could have been New Orleans. We get floods. So this isn't on a global scale. But I know that there are salons in Houston that got absolutely hammered at the beginning of this year. This is an earthquake. But this happens to be where I was born, well, not the city I was born in, but the country I was born in Christchurch in New Zealand, where they have earthquakes. We all know where that is. And we have terrorist attacks in the UK and in various European cities. I have a very good friend of mine, Oscar Bond, who had a salon in Soho in Manhattan. And that image is probably about the distance that it was from his salon. And, the damage that did to his business was just phenomenal. I don't mean physical damage. I mean, just the shutdown of business. People have car crashes every single day of the week, and sometimes those car crashes are fatal. People have walkouts. Salon owners listening to this, people have walkouts. So when we talk about these buffers can be for everything, people have family members that pass away, sometimes very close family members, parents, partners, children. All I'm suggesting to you is that when that sort of stuff happens, it completely upends you and it completely upends your business. And if you're in business, you need to be prepared. We're luckier than ever with this COVID-19 situation in that our governments, whether you're talking the UK or the United States or, Australia or whatever, Western countries you're in, our governments have stepped up to the plate, and there's grants and there's loans and there's all sorts of things. But when these normal events happen, this was Australia at the beginning of this year. It could just as easily have been California most years. And all these events destroy businesses. And if you're in business, you owe it to yourself and your team and your clients to be prepared. And that's what I mean when I say businesses are underprepared. I mean, or if you're a salon owner, I often think of a friend of mine who had breast cancer. And that chart there, studies show 1 in 8 women will develop invasive breast cancer in their lifetime. I don't know how many women are watching this, but let's imagine there's 80 women watching this. Well, you know, statistically, 10 of them will develop breast cancer. Now, a friend of mine, when she had breast cancer, she had to take 9 months off work. And she was able to, and she owned a salon, and her salon still worked and survived while she was away. For many of the people listening to this, the idea of taking 3 weeks off to have a holiday is abhorrent. Never mind 9 months off because you're ill. And then the last one I put there is you know, depending on the age of the people I'm talking to, many of you will have parents, and sometimes your parents will lose their partner. And, you know, like my mother had Alzheimer's, for example. I was very lucky that I come from a big family and my sisters could look after her. But all I'm saying is that you need to be prepared in business, because life sends you curveballs. And in our industry, we are notoriously underprepared for things like this. And when the cash flow stops and the till drawer is empty, our pockets are empty. And I'm not just talking about, you know, the individual stylist, although I am very much talking about the individual stylist. I'm talking about salon owners, whether you're commission-based, rental, whether you've got a salon suite or whatever. We need to make sure that we're building good buffers in our business so that when lean times come, that we're prepared for them. And, you know, we're starting to open up again. You know, different states in America have opened up already. Different states in Australia, etc., are starting to open as well. And that's fantastic. But, you know, and everyone's sort of thinking, you know, there's going to be this huge pent up demand. Well, I think you're probably right. There's going to be a pent up demand. I don't think it's going to last long. I might be completely wrong here. I always try not to be doom and gloom. I try not to ever look at things as being worse than what they are. But equally, I try not to you know, dress things up as being better than what they are. I think we need to be realistic about what's happening. And you know, I saw a statistic on television the other day: 26 million Americans have signed on for unemployment. Yes, there's going to be a pent-up demand. What's going to happen to those 26 million people? Are they going to get employed again straight away? I'm thinking the pent-up demand may very well be short-lived. So, you know, and that no matter which country we're in, we're going to have some sort of financial recession, because, you know, your country, my country, whatever, they can't just pump trillions of dollars into the economy and us naively think that we're going to reopen and life's going to go back to normal. There's going to be a lot of casualties in big business and in small business. And it's not going to go back to normal straight away. And obviously it will impact on some businesses more than others. So, you know, just because you may be reopening, don't think that that's time to go crazy and splash the cash, because it may be an unwise thing to do. So, you know, a few points I put down, you know, as talking points is that in line with that lack of business acumen, which our industry is renowned for. And I'm talking about myself here, guys. I never being demeaning about us as an industry. I'm just trying to be realistic. And like I said, I'm talking about myself in that I opened a salon with absolutely zero business acumen, I don't mind saying. And, you know, very quickly you either learn or you perish. And I opened a salon. I grew it to 3 salons. And I knew I was out of my depth. So I contracted that business back to 1 salon. And this didn't happen in 5 minutes. This happened over a period of 3 years. And then I learned a lot about business and built my business back up to 3 salons and had 3 very profitable businesses. But I do think that there's a lot of people that go into opening up salons for all the wrong reasons. And that those businesses they're literally a hobby. It's not really a business. And I don't mean to, you know, be derogatory saying it like that. But there's a lot of salons out there that the people that own them shouldn't be in business. I would suggest that they're probably not listening to this podcast because, or this webinar, because those very people that need this sort of thing the most tend not to look at stuff like this. So as I've been saying, it is incredibly important that in business that you have a fallback position, that you have some cash flow buffer that you can fall back on in lean times. And ideally, I think you should be aiming for 3 months. What sort of business models will be the hardest hit? Well, I don't really know. Time will tell. But my gut feeling is saying that the smaller businesses, the booth renters and the salon suites, in many cases will be really badly hit through this. I may be completely wrong. That is not based on any data. It is really just based on what I'm seeing on social media and a gut feeling of the types of businesses that I do work with. Again, I hope I'm wrong. I think that one of the lessons going forward that we need to take as salon owners, no matter how big your salon is that you have a holding account, literally a separate check account where you're paying the profit first. I have a podcast and I highly recommend that you listen to it tomorrow because Tina Black's on it, talking about some of the things that she has put in place in her salons for when we do reopen. And she had some great information. But the reason I mentioned my podcast here is that about 2 weeks ago, I interviewed a gentleman. His name's Emiliano Vitali. And he's got a great salon operation. It's a fantastic podcast. We had a lot of great response to it. We do talk in there a little bit about COVID-19, but the reason I bring him up here is that in the podcast, he talks about how he runs his business on 85 cents in the dollar, meaning that he takes 15 cents in the dollar out straight away before anything else. You see, what I often say to people is that you should be paying the profit first. And there's a book that you should get. It's got nothing to do with me, this book. And, there's obviously I have no vested interest in it, but it's called Profit First. It's by an American guy called Mike Michalowicz. And it's pretty much this principle. It's about taking the profit out before everything else. He's not a hairdresser. It's not a book that's aimed at any one industry. It's just aimed at people in business in general tend to treat profit as what's left over at the end. And unfortunately, when you do that, there is traditionally very little, if anything, left over at the end. So pay the profit first is about saying you take out the profit first, whether it's 10 cents in the dollar or my friend Emiliano takes out 15 cents in the dollar. And he puts that into his profit account. And then he has to run his business, pay his wages, pay his rent, pay all his electric, bank fees, credit card fees, staff training, on and on and on it goes out of that 85 cents. That's a great discipline to have. I'm not suggesting it's an easy discipline to have. And if it's not something that you're currently doing, if you were to straight away go to take out 15 cents in the dollar, it maybe would cripple you. But even if it's a discipline, that's the most important thing. So even if you start off by saying, okay, I'm going to take out 5 cents in the dollar at the end of every day, and I'm going to move that straight away into this account called profit. It's the discipline that's the important thing to do. And then if you're surviving on 5 cents, then up it to 7 cents in the dollar. And if your business is still up working on that, then up it to 10 cents in the dollar. Because you should be making 10% profit. This isn't your wages. This is over and above once your wages and everything else has been paid. So that's what I mean by that there. So, salons are underprepared. We need to learn the lessons, okay? All of us at a personal level and at a business level. One of the things for us as an industry, and again, I'm only talking about myself here, is we often don't have a business education. So I didn't go to university. I didn't do a marketing degree, a management degree, a finance degree. I'm a hairdresser. And the fact that I didn't have that tertiary education, it doesn't inhibit me. It didn't hold me back at all as a hairdresser. But then the day I opened up a business, some of that stuff might have helped. Do you know what I mean? Knowing how to read a profit and loss, or knowing a bit more about management or marketing or people management, HR, whatever, would have been enormously helpful. Now, the fact that we don't have that sort of education is not the end of the world, because in many ways we have an even better education. And that education is called the School of Hard Knocks. But the point is you've got to be receptive to the lessons, yeah? The The school of hard knocks is learning from what's working and what's not working. There was a podcast I did recently through Paul Mitchell where I said, you know, that at the moment, I think there are 3 types of businesses. There is one type of business that is gone, this is me out. I can't survive this. I'm done. And they'll either get out of this industry completely, never to be heard of again, or they will turn up somewhere else as an employee, or maybe they'll, you know, they're out from a salon perspective and they'll end up being a booth renter or suite owner, who knows what, somewhere else. So that's the first type, the ones that are out already. The second type of business are the ones that have naively curled up on the couch and thought, great, Netflix. And they're just having a binge session, waiting for this to be over. And then they think that the doors are going to open next week or whenever, next month, and it's going to be back to business as usual. Well, I can promise you one thing, it is going to be anything but business as usual, no matter where you are. So there's the old way is over, whatever the old way represents. So where are we now? Again, this is a little bit morbid, but I keep thinking of this chart that I'm about to share with you because it is about grief, specifically the loss of a loved one. There's a very famous book, and I've forgotten the name of the book now. But anyway, the author's name is this lady here, Elizabeth Kübler-Ross. At the top there, you can see Kübler-Ross, a grief cycle. She's the person who wrote this book, and I forget what it's called, but if you were to just Google her name, that book will come up. It's not a new book, it's been out for quite a while, but her grief cycle is, you know, well referred to, well referenced, and well understood by a lot of people. And basically what it's talking about is the cycle that you go through as a human being when you suffer loss. And what's occurred to me is that we are suffering a loss. It's a loss of how we used to do business. And I thought that I was so clever by making this reference to, you know, the grief cycle of Kübler-Ross. But the reality is that when I Googled it, that not only has she already done that, I don't even know if she's still alive, but she had already done that, and other people have as well, that they've reinterpreted this chart into not grief as in losing a loved one, but grief as in any loss or any change. You can see on that chart on the left-hand side that the first stage of grief is denial. You know, so unfortunately, when you get that knock on the door or that telephone call in the middle of the night, you know, the first stage is denial. Just like the first stage when you were probably told that you were going to have to close, and that, you know, I just heard again this morning that you're approaching 1 million infections in America through COVID-19. I mean, this has really upended everybody. So, you know, the first stage is denial, avoidance, confusion, shock, fear. The second stage is anger. So again, whether we're talking about our businesses, you know, thinking that you have to close, I can't afford to close, I'm going to lose my business, how am I going to feed my kids? There's anger, there's frustration, there's anxiety and fear. In a personal loss context, the bargaining thing at the bottom, and I haven't read enough about this to talk about it in any great detail, but the bargaining thing is, you know, the please God, if only you do this for me, I will never do that again. It's that phase that we go through. And then depression, overwhelm, hopelessness, hostility, flight, you know, running away from it. And then eventually you come through the top end of that curve of acceptance. And many of us have lost, whether it's that you just lost a pet or you lost a loved one, and you'll probably look at that and you'll be able to relate to it. A little bit of reading I have done about it points out that there is no set time frame. So that doesn't take 6 months to go from beginning to end. For some people, it can take a week. For other people, it can take years. The other thing that I did read that makes sense is that you're not in each of those stages for a fixed amount of time, that you can jump back and forward. So I can really see and feel that people are jumping back and forward into different states. So if you were to Google that, you can see that chart. It's on Google. That's where I downloaded it from this morning. But this is the second version of the same thing, which she had already done. And I might have this completely wrong, but I seem to think that she did this in the 70s. Now, I might be wrong with that, but something I saw this morning made me think that this is how old that was, that she recognized that this model applied to business just as much. So this chart here isn't talking about personal loss. This is talking about the loss that we're experiencing in business and the change that we have to go through. So you can see along the bottom, it's talking about time, and up the side, it's talking about morale and your level of competence. So, first stage again is shock. The shock of the fact that you've had to close, that you can't work. The second stage is the denial, the disbelief that how could this possibly last a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 6 weeks? How could this possibly happen all over the country, all over the world? Then the third stage there is frustration. So, there's a recognition that this is real now as we go into that next stage. And, we're recognizing that things are different. We're getting angry with people, with our loved ones. We're now confined in lockdown spaces. We're getting angry with ourselves. We're getting angry with our governments. We're getting angry with other countries. Then we go into that bottom stage there, which is the depression, the low mood, the lacking in energy. And then hopefully we start to come out of that and we start to experiment. So what is this new world going to look like? What is the things that we need to do to make this situation work for us? And that's one of the reasons why I want you to go to my podcast tomorrow. It's on Grow My Salon Business. .com, which is my website, and you'll hear Tina talking about all the things that she is doing that are very much in that stage. These are the things that we're going to put together as a business to make it work in our salons and our schools. So I recommend checking that out. Then, somewhere in that blue phase, as we go into that sort of, lighter green phase, is learning how to work in the new situation. So, I looked at my friend who I said to you posted a picture on social media yesterday or Saturday of him with a mask, the client with a mask, the client wearing gloves. And it's a little bit of a novelty, and he's laughing about it. He's actually saying, I never thought I'd be cutting hair dressed up like Zorro. And I just thought to myself this morning, I thought, how's that going to go down in a week's time? How's that going to go down in 2 weeks' time? When it's 100 degrees outside, it's hot, it's humid, you've got that damn mask on, the client's got a mask on, you're wearing gloves, or the client's wearing gloves to cut hair. Some hairdressers are wearing gloves to cut hair. Talk about looking at this chart, going from that straight back over to frustration and anger and annoyance. And buffeting back and forward between frustration and then getting depressed that you have to do this, and then looking at, well, how can we make it work? How long is this going to last? And then the top stage is the integration. It's the coming out of this as this is the new normal, and we've made this work because we have to make it work. So when I looked at this chart, I found it very helpful. I found it it gave me a little bit, and I'm going to do, I always do this. I'm so sorry. I'm going to go back and pull up another chart, which I'd also hidden because I thought it wouldn't be relevant. It'd be too repetitive. But again, you can also see this chart. All of these charts I just got off Google 2 or 3 hours ago. And again, exactly the same thing, the Kubler-Ross model. And, looking at this, it's very similar to the last one, and there's lots of different versions of this online there. And it's the same thing, you know, morale and competence up the left-hand side, time along the bottom. But what I liked when I looked at this was the little bit of detail that had been put there that was helpful. So, you know, shock, surprise at the event, yeah. Denial, disbelief, looking for evidence that it isn't true. And then it's the little boxes they put underneath it with a sort of like, okay, so what do we need to do here? Well, we all need to get aligned. As a leader, as a salon owner, I need to make sure all my team are informed and communicated with, and that we can create some sort of alignment here out of this disorder and chaos. And I found that helpful. Then we're back to frustration, which was the same one as the previous chart. But then that little drop-down box, maximize communication. I think as leaders and as owners, it's really, really important that we have been and continue to be communicating with our team, because they're going to get frustrated, they're going to get angry, and it's our job to keep them on track and to really be communicating with them constantly. Then right at the bottom again, we've got depression. And you can see why people are getting depressed, because, you know, financially, and they feel out of control, and what is the new normal going to look like? And again, the little drop down box, you know, spark motivation. It's our job to do that, to motivate our people, to motivate our team. So what are the things that we can do? You know, then the next one, you know, experiment, you know, initial engagement with the new situation. What are the things? So that different people have been doing or could do? What are the things that governments are going to impose on us that we need to do? And, you know, and developing that capability. It's not just thinking about it. It's like, okay, how am I going to, what do I need to put in place? You know, from, you know, the social distancing rules to hand hygiene rules, to developing systems, to staff training, to the implementation and follow through. And then, you know, up the curve again, decision, learn how to work in the new situation, feeling more positive. You know, we need to share that knowledge. So, you know, I salute what Sean and Tina are doing with this, because they're sharing this knowledge. I salute what Paul Mitchell are doing. They're sharing this knowledge. We've got to get this out there to people, because this is the new norm. This is the new world that we're living in. And so anything you can get that can sort of give you some clarity. And I suppose for me, things like this give me clarity, because I'm a hairdresser and this is a picture. And when you take this away from me, all I feel is frustration and chaos and out of control and all these different emotions. When you give me this, I'm able to put a name to how I'm feeling and where I've come from and maybe where I'm going. And I start to feel a lot better and a lot more in control. So that was that one there. So, you know, sort of in line with that, we just touched on communication. One of the things that I saw happening a lot, you know, I'm in a lot of social media groups in different countries with that are industry specific groups. And it was just interesting how, you know, there was a lot of Chicken Little, you know, the sky is falling. I'm sure most of you will know the, you know, the fairy tale story, whatever it is, of Chicken Little, how when an acorn fell on his head, he ran around in circles screaming out, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, and creating hysteria in the community. And all I could think of is that that's what it was like, looking at a lot of these social media things. Don't get me wrong, I love social media, but it's also a breeding ground for hysteria and drama and the ill-informed. A lot of the drama as well. I mean, you know, I'm a hairdresser too. I mean, you know, hairdressers love a bit of drama. Let's not pretend they don't. You know? And, you know, I saw people in lots of different countries that were so-called leaders that were just creating hysteria. And some of the hysteria that different leaders are creating it's passive. It's what I call, it's passive drama. It's like, you know, it's the glass is half full or the glass is half empty syndrome. You can talk about the fact the glass is half full, or you can talk about the fact that it's half empty. And when you focus on the fact that it's half empty, it's in a lot of ways creating passive drama. And so I think more and more, luckily we've moved through that now because we're now on the other end of it. But I think that it is so, I'd like to think we're on the other end of it. You know, I think the importance of good, clear communication to clients and the team and the industry in general has been essential, and not to create hysteria, even if it is being done passively, you know, think through on examples as to what that might mean. Another podcast I did with a lady in New York at the beginning of this, before the shutdown really was happening. And she put me onto this expression. You know, I was saying to her, so what are you going to do with your business while it's closed? And she said, well, we're going to be really communicating with the clients and the staff or frequently through social media platforms. And she said, we've been thinking a lot about the tone or the voice of our messaging. And I thought, wow, that's, you know, I don't know if it does it to you. You know, sometimes you hear something and it's like, kaboom. To me, that was a kaboom moment. You know, like I sort of go on social media and I don't consciously have a tone or a voice. I'm just, this is me, this is who I am. And depending on the mood I'm in, you might get up, down, or in between. And it relates to what I was saying before about passive drama and hysteria. Is it's really important to have a tone, a voice to your messaging consciously, because otherwise it's easy to fall into your tone being creating passive drama. And that was a really big learning for me, to carry through, not just with while we've been dealing with COVID-19, but with all your communication as a brand, that it's really important to go, okay, what is the tone? What is the voice that we want to have? You know, so, and just to brainstorm some words. So you might write down compassionate, you might write down leadership, you might write down authentic, you know, whatever the words are. There isn't a right or wrong list of words, but I think once you write down half a dozen words that are the tone that you want to come across with, then before you post anything, you reference it, you filter it through those words and go, is that message live up to my bullet points or not? And if it doesn't, then you need to change the message. Yeah. One of the things that has you know, really impacted on the salon industry, and you've seen this in social media, and I'm sure you've all seen it, is the you know, the way that the at-home color kits thing has really polarized the industry. And you know, I have been talking quite a lot about this, and I'll continue to talk quite a lot about it, and I don't make any apologies for it, because, you know, I do a seminar called Grow My Color Business, and the beginning of the seminar, I talk about how, you know, the access to professional color has been quietly changing behind your back, and most salons are not even aware of it. And you have brands like, well, L'Oreal's Color & Co., and you have another brand called Salon, which is owned by Henkel, which own, you know, Joico and Schwarzkopf and, you know, Altona and Kenra and et cetera, et cetera. So these are big multinational brands, but they also own these other brands which sit in this consumer market, which is the online color companies. And I don't have a problem with them. I mean, it's the world we live in, that you now have, you know, this technology and these things exist. But, you know, this is from this morning. This is Color & Co.'s email blast that got sent out to a friend of mine this morning, and she sent it to me, you know, and this is the email blast. And I mean, have a look at that, you know, hang on, where is it? Why isn't it doing, okay, there you go. You can still get professional color delivered to your door. You see, it's like they're not even pretending anymore that it's different to what salons get. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I'm the Paul Mitchell guy. I don't make any apologies for being that. You know, I'm proud of the association that I have, but like, you know, you can still get professional color delivered to your door. It's like they used to at least pretend that it was a different product. Is it a different product or not? Well, I don't know. Is this just the people in their marketing department getting a bit carried away? It's not a one-off. This is happening consistently. This whole thing about at-home color kits has really split the industry, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of it in social media. A lot of hate mail, basically, but it's directed from salon to salon or hairdresser to hairdresser. And there's lots of comment about how your insurance is invalid and it's not professional and you'll lose your license, you'll get fined. Are those things true? Yes, potentially, depending on the state you're in. It's not blanket. I've been reliably informed it is not every state. Yes, your insurance is invalid in every state from the manufacturer, but you don't automatically lose your license or get fined. Apparently that is more state dependent. Now, I'm not advocating this, but I just get confused why as an industry, we beat up with a vengeance the guy down the road who's selling box color to a regular client, not box color, a take-home color kit to a regular client to do her roots, to keep her happy, that we beat up him, but I never see anything negative aimed at the big boys. You know, as an industry, we seem to ignore naming and shaming, Color & Co. or eSalon. At best, we'll talk about Madison Reed, which is still a privately owned company, which essentially does the same thing, but it's a small privately owned company. It's not a big multinational stock market listed company, you know. So at best as an industry, you'll hear everyone beating up on Madison Reed or the local salon or the local hairdresser, you know, down the road. And, you know, the big multinationals, you know, you can read as well as I do. You can still get professional color delivered straight to your door. And unfortunately, many of the people listening to this, you know, they maybe don't beat up on those brands because that's what they've got in the back room. So all I would suggest to you is that you need to be really careful who you partner with. And, you know, I don't ever want to come across like I'm personally attacking those brands. I'm not. There's lots of good friends of mine that work at Schwarzkopf or work at L'Oreal or whatever that are good people. But all I'm saying to you is that they're owned by big multinational companies whose loyalty is with their shareholder, and rightly so. But you're a salon owner and you are the shareholder in your business. So your loyalty should be to you, your shareholder. So just think about who the brands are that you spend your money with, because if I owned a salon, I would want brands that really genuinely 100% supported me, not in good times and in bad, not, you know, not be hedging their bets each way, you know, so that, okay, we're not selling any product through salons at the moment, but don't mind, we're selling plenty through grocery and we're selling plenty through our online portal. So, you know, that's sort of a 45-minute presentation on things that are going on in my head at the moment. You'll like some of them, you won't like others. Don't shoot the messenger. I just like to, you know, get people to think about, you know, the world that we live in and the businesses that we've got, the opportunities that we've got, because, you know, out of this, there will become big changes, you know, without a shadow of a doubt. This industry will be different and it won't all be bad. There'll be lots of positive things that come from it. There'll be lots of people that maybe won't reopen, that maybe that's a good thing, that they probably shouldn't have reopened, and that maybe they'll become employees, and that maybe, you know, salons will get a better handle on their commission percentages and stuff, because they'll recognize that if you're not profitable, you just shouldn't be in business, because you are a disaster waiting to happen. And you need to be profitable. And that doesn't just mean paying yourself a nice wage. That means over and above what you pay yourself, the business needs to run at a healthy profit margin for all these other things. So,
I love that.
Tina, let's hope we
Anthony,
have lots of questions
thank
in
you
there.
so much. I love this so much because Sean and I have a 6-month course that we teach. It's the 5 strategies of a healthy business. And you touched on the first one, which is fixing your foundation. And I think, you know, obviously you listed off all of the tragedies that can happen. And we were hit, this home where I'm at right now was hit by a hurricane in 2017. And this home still stood because it had a solid foundation. There was poles in the ground and I couldn't understand. I kept asking my husband, why are those poles going down 20, 25 feet? He said, in case a hurricane hits. And just down the street, literally, there was homes from the 1970s that weren't built that way. And so is your salon built from the 1970s, right? So we have to think a lot differently. And I love what Robert Croming said recently. He said he didn't realize until this crisis, Anthony, that he sucked as a leader. And he said that. And I just thought that was so cool because 2013, that's when I realized that I sucked as a leader. And I knew I had to make some shifts. And I had to make years ago shifts in my company, what you were talking about, the profit first. So I want to back up a little bit because I think it's important for people to understand, the ones that are listening right here, how do they know if they're healthy financially? So first and foremost, my thing that I tell everybody, you've got to hire a really great accountant, but you also need an attorney in your pocket that specializes in the Department of Labor, because you could be violating all kinds of labor standards and not really understand, because most salon owners, like you said, they don't understand Department of Labor standards. They don't get it. They hire their, my husband's a lawyer, so I get it. They try to hire their, family lawyer, thinking the family lawyer knows all this stuff. And then they listen to their accountant saying, oh no, it's okay if you run a business this way. You have a bunch of independent contractors in your salon, blah, blah, blah. And then you've got a bunch of employees. It's okay if you run. This is listening to your accountant, and it's like, no, you need to listen to the people that understand. So talk about that. I know you coach salon owners as well too. Talk about that, because I had to we went through so many accountants. We've been through so many, and I had literally had to train my accountant how to speak to me. And she knows that she has to put things in color because I love everything in color. And she's like, here, I put it in color for you, Tina. So talk about that a little bit, because I think first and foremost, people need to get their books in order and they need to figure out this business. And that's a book that we use too, the Profit First book with Mike as well too, Anthony. So talk a little bit about that. What's the first step that they should be doing?
Well, I mean, when you go into business, there are certain shortcuts you can take sometimes, and there's other shortcuts you can't take. And the problem with hairdressers is that and this is me I'm talking about, okay? This is the problem with me. This is what I did. I was so focused on the decor and what it would look like and the chandelier and the color of that wall and what my logo would be. And I was focused on all that. And I wasn't focused enough on the business side of it because I didn't know any better. Mm-hmm. And, you need good professionals in your camp. So, you need a good accountant, you need a good lawyer. Now, how do you find a good accountant or good lawyer? It's exactly the same way you find a good hairdresser. I won a hairdressing award once for Hairdresser of the Year in Australia. And a magazine interviewed me and she said, you're the best, why are you the best hairdresser in Australia or something? And I said, look, I'm not the best hairdresser. I happen to win an award, a Hairdresser of the Year, but that doesn't make me the best hairdresser for everybody. It makes me the best hairdresser for some people, but maybe not for others. And I'm the first one to say that. Mm-hmm. And so she said to me, how do you find a good hairdresser? And I said, or the best hairdresser for you? And I said, well, you go out and you just knock on a door and say, can I have a consultation? And every salon in the land will do free consultations. And I said, do that with 2 or 3 different salons. And you will definitely know at the end of doing that with 3 salons, which one you want to go to. That's how you find the best hairdresser for you. Is it someone who listens? Is it someone whose idea of beauty is empathetic with my idea of how I see myself? Is it someone I connect with? You'll know that when you're looking for a hairdresser. So the analogy is exactly the same with an accountant. You call up an accountant, whether you go to you Google them or you get references from some friends, and you go along and say, look, I'm looking for a new accountant. I'd like you to have a chat to me for 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is. And I'm sure it would be free, but even if it wasn't, what are they going to charge you for 15 minutes, half an hour? $100, $200. It's still going to be the best $100 you've ever spent to find the right one and to dodge a bullet with the wrong one. So, you ask them, you say, okay, well, look, I'm a hairdresser. I'm good at this. I'm good at that, but I'm terrible at the other. How would you be able to help me? So I'm a really good, I didn't know you were going to ask me that, but I did this with my accountant. I said, look, I'm not good with numbers, but I'm really a good visual person. So I need the numbers put into graphs. And so he said, no problem, we can do that for you. So because as soon as you put numbers into a graph, then it's a picture. And as a hairdresser, we like pictures. So if you gave me an Excel spreadsheet with all the numbers, it wouldn't mean anything. But you give me this graph that basically is a picture of what the numbers are doing. Well, even blind Freddie can see whether it's going up or down or plateauing. So, that's what I did. And so I had this great relationship, like you just said, with your accountant, and they color things for you because they know that you like colors. He did the same for me, And if your accountant, because we get intimidated with numbers, and in one of my presentations, I do my money seminar, I talk about how hairdressers don't like numbers. But what I say is they do actually like numbers. They just are selective about the numbers that they like.
Right.
So they'll talk about 20 vol or 30 vol. They'll talk about a number, a level 7 or a level 3. They'll talk about the number on the shade chart or a particular tube of tint or whatever. If you took those numbers and gave them to an accountant, he wouldn't have a clue what they mean unless you educated him. And likewise, you shouldn't feel intimidated about looking at a profit and loss and not understanding it. So you should say to your accountant, I want you to walk me through this and explain it to me. And keep on asking them those questions until you understand it. Don't sort of feel intimidated that you don't understand that you're just a dumb hairdresser. It's their job to educate you. And if they can't explain it and educate you, then either it's the wrong accountant, which is a good possibility, or perhaps you're the wrong person to be in business, or maybe you're the right person to be in business, but maybe you need a partner in business who is looking after that side of the business. And that's not necessarily a negative thing. There are lots of people in our industry who are great at the creative, but they have a business partner who is great at the numbers side of it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I love that you said that, Anthony. And also, Sean and I, what we've done is we've hired salon coaches to look at our numbers too. And so I think it's important to always have an eye, another eye, because we can't always see our blind spots, because one coach might see one thing, another coach might see another thing. And so we've been able to kind of look at some different ideas. And coaching with you, Anthony, you've opened up our eyes to so many areas that we were missing. We had so many blind spots. So I think having a coach as well too. And I love that you said fix your foundation of who you're partnering with, because that's part of your business. So who are you giving your business to? Who are you giving your money to? And that really hit home with me too, because of course I'm a Paul Mitchell Focus Salon owner, and I stick with one brand because I believe in the one brand. And the second thing you talked about, which Sean and I go through a whole month, is fixing your communication. And I thought I was so amazing at communication, but I'll tell you, this crisis really opened up my eyes to be able to see I need to fix the communication that I have. And I love the graphs, because today we were meeting with our salon leaders today, and we had a discovery that we really need to check in more with our team, because a couple of our team members are really, really struggling. And so we actually are having a counselor get on tomorrow for 10 minutes to talk, because we want to let them know that it's okay if you're not okay. And here you can hire a counselor. We are talking about hiring a counselor for some of our team members as a business, because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so talk a little bit about the realities of communication, what do you see the best salons, how are they communicating right now, and how are they checking in with their team?
Good question. The best salons are checking in, and they're checking in regularly. You know, they have like structured, you know, we get on a Zoom call or Microsoft Teams or whatever, you know, we get on that every day for, you know, even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes, just to touch base as a team. Sometimes they've put in some structured things like book clubs where they'll debrief a chapter of a book, and then I'll read the next chapter and they'll debrief that the next day. And you know, you mentioned Robert. Robert always comes up with some off the wall ideas that are a lot of fun. You know, one of the ones he does on a Friday evening, I think it is, he does quarantinis. So he's doing a virtual happy hour, and they all get dressed up and they have quarantinis. You know, so I mean, I love that. So it's about communicating, and it's about communicating frequently with people. And recognizing in line with that goes right back to those stages of grief thing that we talked about, is recognizing that just because you communicate with someone today and they're in one stage of that chart doesn't mean they're going to be in the same, you know, you can't go, oh, Tina's fine, I spoke to her yesterday. Well, Tina might have been fine yesterday, but today she may not be fine. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, because we're at different stages as we work through that. And so, you know, it's a complicated time. And you know, the other thing, and it's interesting that you just picked up on that. You said that not everyone on your team is the same. And I was saying that right from the get-go, that, you know, like, there are people on your team who are married, they've got children, they're happy, they've got some savings, they've got, you know, a pet, they've got a back garden, you know, and they're on lockdown and everything's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then there might be people on your team that are 20, 21, 22. They live in a studio apartment by themselves. They've maybe got a dysfunctional family relationship. Maybe they've moved city to get a job with you, so they don't have a big network of friends. And maybe financially, they're really in dire straits. And emotionally, they don't have people to talk it through. So, you know, it's not a one size fits all. There will be people on your team that you need to have one-to-one conversations with and touch in with them more regularly, and other people that you you know, you don't need to do that with. You can just touch in with them on a group level. So, you know, it's important as a leader, as a manager, that you think of your teams like that.
Yeah, I love that you said the book club, because our team has used all of your books for our book club. And so I highly recommend that. In fact, I just threw that out with a bunch of the salons that we coach and said, hey, why don't you guys start a book club, and I'll pop on for an hour and do a Q&A with your team. Because I think right now it's so important as we communicate. A book club is kind of a way to see where people are at. And you mentioned earlier about looking at the tone and how you're speaking on social media. I also think that goes back to look how you look on the camera too. And because if you look sad or you're not smiling on the camera, because all eyes are literally on you right now, you know what I mean? Because they might think of you as a leader of, man, okay, because my staff knows I'm always smiling. And so if I'm not smiling, they're going to think, oh my gosh, the whole world is coming. The sky is falling because Tina's not smiling. And so you have to realize as a leader, all eyes are on you. And I love the fact that you said start a book club, because there's so many great books out there. Anthony's books, my books, there's so many out there that you can use with your team and create so much magic for them as well too. So talk about your books and how we can get a hold of your books too, because I believe it's only through your website, the Grow My Salon Business website, correct?
Yeah, you can get, okay, so they do have them on Paul Mitchell Pro sometimes, but I don't know if they've got stock at the moment. So you can get them on paulmitchellpro.com.
Perfect.
If they have them. Or you can get them from my website, which is growmysalonbusiness.com. And thank you for bringing that up, because we put a free shipping thing on there for the month of April.
Wow. Sean, there we go. Let's get more.
So I imagine a lot of the audience listening to this have already got them, but if you haven't got them and want them, it's free shipping for the next couple of days. I don't know how many days we've got left in this month. If you go on to growmysalonbusiness.com, you can order them on there. They get sent out all over the world, pretty much every day. So yeah, thank you for
That's so funny. So you may not know this story, but Sean's the one who found you because you did a master's interview with Win Claybaugh and he started stalking you. And so we ordered all of your books for our schools and then of course later for our salons. And then I hired your editor to do my very first book because I wanted my book to look like yours.
Yeah. Graphic designer. Yeah, Karen. Yeah.
You're my biggest mentor. And
Well,
I just honestly cannot even thank you enough for being a part of this. This means the world to Sean and I. So thank you for that. And I know to get a hold of you on Instagram is Grow My Salon Business as well. And then I know you've got so many courses going on, but they're in person. Are you going to be doing any virtual trainings coming up, being the fact that we may not be able to meet together?
Yeah, there's lots of bits and pieces going out on Paul Mitchell Pro every week. Paul Mitchell have really stepped up to the plate with developing digital content and at a phenomenal rate. There's a whole team of people producing content, getting it out there. And it's all small sound bites of information. Not that small, there's some really good content in them. And they're alternating it with the people that are producing the content, but also putting it on their own platforms. So I'm putting stuff on my Instagram platform and Facebook platform, and out through my own website with my podcasts, and also putting stuff out through Paul Mitchell Pro, as are, all the people on that chart there, whether it's Colin or Robert and Mary and Stephanie and Callie and a whole team of people that are educators with Paul Mitchell that are producing a lot of great content out there. So, I recommend everyone goes in that direction. I think that is going to be one of the things that come out the end of this, is that education has changed forever. Not just in the hairdressing industry, and there will always be live events, but people Zoom, I read somewhere once they had something like 600,000 new people in one day go on Zoom who had never used Zoom before. So I think what's going to happen is that businesses everywhere are going to recognize that actually people can work remotely, people can be really productive working remotely. And, I'm talking all over the world every day with groups of people like we're doing right now, and it's very effective. So I think we're going to see a huge uptake in online learning platforms in this industry. I've actually been working on my version of that for the last 3 years. And it was going to be launched at the beginning of this month. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has put a stop to it for the moment. But when we get on the other side of this, it will be out in the not too distant future. There's stuff I'm doing independently. There's lots of stuff I'm doing with John Paul Mitchell Systems. And, I highly recommend that everyone tunes into what all this team of people at Paul Mitchell are doing, because, it's what we touched on before. Some brands have gone very quiet, and other brands are so proactive, and I don't see anyone being as nearly as proactive about bringing good content and genuine help to the hairdressing industry in the United States as what Paul Mitchell is. So.
Agreed. Thank you, Anthony. You're amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate this. So any last words of advice? Sean, I don't see any other questions on here. Any last pieces of advice for us, Anthony, as we close this out?
Just, thank you everyone for being on this call. And, I wish you nothing but the best, going forward. I mean, obviously we all want to be open. We all want to get back to normal, but it's not going to be back to normal. It's going to be back to a new normal. And we need to be, flexible in how we approach that. I think that we need to recognize that some of the things that we're going to be doing, we're going to have to do forever. And some of the things that we're going to be doing are going to be a short-term thing. Now, whether short-term means for the rest of this year or until they find a vaccine or for 3 months, I don't know. But some of the things, you know, I can't believe that they're going to be forever. That forever, every hairdresser has to have a mask and the client has to have a mask and they've got gloves. I just cannot believe that that's going to be forever. But who knows?
Right.
Wait and see.
Agreed.
So be flexible,
Yeah.
and you know, communicate openly and honestly with the people that you work with. And if you lead a team, you know, spend a lot of time nurturing and building, you know, those great relationships with that team. So thank you very much for having me as a guest on the webinar today. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you guys as always, and your audience. So until next time.
Thank you, Anthony. Yes. And we will make sure to post this on the Salon Owners and Leaders page, Facebook page. If you're not on it, email me at tina@tinablack.net. We'll get you taken care of. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Bye, Anthony.
Thank you. Bye.